Hi, my name is Tim Meunier, and I'm the Director of Music Ministries at the First United Methodist Church of Jackson, Michigan. And this is Food for Thought for Friday, September 11. When I was a child, each summer my three brothers, my twin sister, my parents and I would pack up the car for a trip back to Sanford, Maine. Sanford is where I was born. In fact, the hospital where my sister and I were born is just up the street from my grandparents' house. With its proximity to Canada, there are many French-speaking communities in the Northeast U.S. Both my parents are raised in Maine, and Maine, of course, being so close to Canada, has a lot of French speakers. My parents were French speakers. In fact, my mother's parents didn't even speak any English, but my dad's parents did. We call my grandparents Mémé and Pépé. My fraternal Mémé was what every grandmother should be. Not that I had many to compare with. She was sweet and always had a smile. I loved my Mémé very much. In fact, we would always bring our own pillows when we visited, and when we returned home, I didn't want my mother to wash my pillowcase because it always smelled like Mémé's house. Now, Pépé wasn't at all like Mémé. He was rather stern. It was clearly Mémé's job to tend to les petits enfants, the grandchildren. Pépé was somewhat of a mystery to me. As the years passed, his hearing was fading. In the corner of their living room was the TV, and 6 feet away was his chair turned to face that corner TV. To my young self, it resembled a cockpit. Even today, the two things that I would think about when I think of Pépé was the fact that as a smoker, he could blow smoke out of his ears, and that he could pour a third of a bottle of honey onto one toast and not spill a drop. Of course, those memories were formed through the eyes of a child. Sadly, I had very little contact with my mother's parents. In fact, my mother's dad, a very proud French Canadian, would not enter our home because we were not strictly a French-speaking home. Of course, we would visit when we returned to Maine during those summer vacations, but we kids would occupy ourselves outside or just sit on the kitchen stairs while my parents and grandparents visited. Pépé died in his 70s, and I never got the opportunity to really know him. Actually, there was a lot of French spoken around our house as my parents attempted to teach French to their children. The plan was for French to be spoken inside the home and English outside the home. This got rather confusing. I, for one, developed a stuttering problem and had to work with a speech pathologist when I was in school. My parents weren't the best teachers, and I've always regretted that they gave up so easily. But having 4 children in diapers at the same time, I'm sure that their attention and priorities were on a million other things. When I, as an adult, had tried to talk to them about their attempt to teach us French, they noted that while some of my cousins were bilingual, my parents felt that those cousins spoke neither language well. Besides, it made it easier for my parents to have private conversations around their kids. I don't know about you, but the older I get, the more interested I am about my heritage. My parents were each given an ancestry test years ago by my brother. They collected their saliva samples and then shipped them off to be tested. My dad's results came back as 99% French, and my mother's came back as 96%. My nom de famille, my family name, Meunier, is actually correctly pronounced Meunier. I'm not sure who Americanized it along the way, but I suppose that they felt that it was easier to pronounce. I'm not too sure if they were successful with that. Meunier is an occupational name. It means one who is a miller. Coincidentally, I'm the second owner of the house that I am living in now. The house was built by Mr. and Mrs. Miller, and at the time, it was insured by Michigan Millers. I think that it was destiny for me to live there. I've always wanted to be able to speak to my parents in their native language. So during the last 11 to 12 years, I've been quite intent on studying French with the goal of finally speaking it with my parents. My mom recently turned 86 and my dad 89, so I know that I don't have the luxury of time. So I've been rather intent to learn the language and have come a very long way. My oldest son calls me a Francophile. I've done all 5 levels of Rosetta Stone, all 5 levels of Pimsleur, which is an excellent program. It was so good that when I finished it, I started all over again a second time, and I'm now again at the 5th level. While doing that, I've also been working with Babbel every night, as well as several podcasts. Yeah, I guess I fit the description of a Francophile. But even with all that, I've come to realize a very sad realization. The French that my parents once spoke is a very colloquial version of French. My dad calls it bastardized French. And the French that I've been studying for almost 12 years is Parisian French. I've tried to encourage them that we should give it a go and try to speak with one another, but they, for some reason, are reluctant. I certainly don't consider the last 12 years a waste of time, because maybe the fact that just having my parents know that I've made the attempt should be good enough for me. I've sent them letters in French and always end with "Ton bon fils qui parle français," your good son who speaks French. I've grown to enjoy the learning process and was happy to have been able to successfully use the French that I have learned on a recent trip to France a few years ago. Yes, so as you can see, my French heritage is important to me, but there's another heritage that is equally important to me. It's my heritage of faith. My parents are faithful Catholics. We never miss Mass, and my siblings and I attended CCD classes on Saturday morning. My brothers and I were raised with rosaries in our suit pockets. In fact, during Lent, we would turn our dining room chairs around so that they were facing out, and we could each kneel at our chair as we went around the table reciting the prayers of the Rosary. To say that my parents helped to form my heritage of faith would be an understatement. Once my interest in music grew, I began to notice the quality of music in our church. Now, this was the late 60s and early 70s. There are a number of guitars, and there was Mrs. Augustine, who would always sing louder than anyone else in the church. My siblings and I would get looks from my parents when we laughed, but they always had smirks on their face too. My parents were quick to tell me that my Pepe would refer to those Saturday night guitar masses as the Hootenanny Mass. Pepe wasn't very reverent. Music by that time of my life was just starting to bloom in my heart. So after attending Saturday Mass with my family, I would accompany my best friend and his family to worship at the Presbyterian Church on Sunday morning so that I could sing in their choir. Rehearsals were on Thursday nights, and the organist and choir directors were both from Westminster Choir College in Princeton. In fact, they were classmates of Jackie and Chuck Livesay's. So I guess that you could say that my heritage of faith was a journey that was passed on to me by my parents and then nurtured by the people I was fortunate enough to meet along the way. What journey of faith has shaped your life? Who pointed the way for you? Was it a parent? Was it a grandparent? Maybe your faith heritage isn't very strong. Maybe your heritage didn't center around a relationship with God. Maybe you're even thinking that you're too old and that a faith heritage needs to be developed while you're young. When I started to dig into my family's heritage and wanted to grow my French connection, so to speak, it was in my early 50s, and I had just gone through a painful divorce. But I was determined that in moving forward, I wanted to take all of the wonderful things that had been a part of my life and add them to all the wonderful things that were still ahead of me. I wanted to grow and to be more than I was. I was certainly not too old to begin a new life of learning and growing. And frankly, I'm quite proud of all that I've learned and the connections that I've made to my heritage, not just my French heritage, but also my faith heritage. And you know what? You aren't too old either. If you feel that your faith heritage isn't strong and your faith roots aren't very deep, then why not start now to grow them? J'espère que vous savez qu'il y a beaucoup de choses que vous pouvez apprendre. Avec notre Dieu, toutes les choses sont possibles. C'est jamais trop tard. Alors, commencez maintenant. I hope that you know that there are a lot of things that you can still learn. With God, everything is possible. It's never too late, so begin now. Well, as it turns out, this will be my last food for thought. My choir season is starting, and I'm trying to maneuver those rehearsals around a newly discovered health issue. So I guess that you could say that my plate is full, too full to be serving any more food for thought for a while. Many thanks to those of you who have listened to my posts. I've actually enjoyed sharing my thoughts with you. Reverend Tanya and Deacon Greg will be sharing our future Friday posts with you, and which will be the only food for thoughts going forward on Fridays. We hope that you'll join us in worship this Sunday, September 13th, in our sanctuary. This will be our homecoming Sunday. After 6 months, our church doors will be open to our congregation and friends to join us in worship in our sanctuary. Will things look different and sound different? Yes, they will, but it sure will be great to have you home again. See you then. Bienvenue, mes amis.